So it turns out something did happen while I was sleeping, and unfortunately, it wasn't good. In Pawtucket, Rhode Island, a massive fire broke out in a vacant mill. That fire quickly spread to 7 other vacant mills in the same area.
Tonight, we're also tracking an overnight fire that tore through a mill complex on the Central Falls-Pawtucket line shortly after 3 o'clock this morning. The good news here, we are learning no one was hurt, but more than 200 people in neighboring buildings were displaced.
It was definitely good news and a huge relief to learn that no one was hurt. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be making this video. It's always scary anytime something like this happens because it can be hard to tell just how far the fire will spread. One of my best friends and his little dog Tater lives literally across the street from these mills, so my mind went straight to them and everyone else in the building when I saw this news. So again, everyone is all right after this, and the occupied buildings were relatively unharmed despite how furious this fire was just across the street. Here's exactly where the fires happened in Rhode Island. And one of the reasons it was so large is because the mills were built with timber beams and wooden floors, which were pretty well soaked with oils from past industrial use. Almost everything in this circle was burned to the shells. But we have some amazing firefighters here, and we're actually lucky that that's all that happened. This is imaging from the National Weather Service out of Boston the night of the fire. And the heat was so intense that it actually picked it up on its thermal imaging, which means that this fire was really hot. But how hot? At least 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which would warp and melt the metals in the mill. For scale, this is not as hot as the surface of the sun, so case closed on that. These buildings, called the Conant Thread complex, is part of a 50-acre industrial district that dates back to about 1868, when the first of a series of mills was built. This complex was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1983 and has been targeted for redevelopment in recent years. This complex actually had a pretty bright future. Most of the abandoned places I visit are hanging in financial and ownership limbo with no clear plans, but this spot was being redeveloped into lofts, artist spaces, and retail storefronts, which makes this fire pretty frustrating. I knew I had to go see the remains at this point, since places like this are usually demolished shortly after because of safety concerns. You ready to go? Okay. Okay, Ellie. How you feeling? You good to go? Oh, that's right, she's an indoor cat. I gotta remember that one of these days. After a 20-minute drive, I got there, and I definitely wasn't prepared for just how bad the damage was. What's left of these buildings looks like they can fall down at any time. There are heat cracks everywhere, and it honestly looks like a war zone. But I think the most eye-opening part about this is the twisted and warped steel and iron that you can see throughout these remains. I mean, that's a lot of heat for these fires to be putting out. Mills are pretty common in New England since it is the home of the Industrial Revolution. I've seen a few abandoned mills like these burn down over the years. For example, here's another notorious one that burned down in 2011. The city smelled like smoke for days after this.
fire started around 7:30 last night, and it did what mill fires do. It lit up the Woonsocket sky in a display of flames and smoke that could be seen and smelled from miles away. Firefighters from more than a dozen departments knew right away there never was a chance of putting it out.
But with this complex fire in Pawtucket, this is the first time that I saw the destruction from this point of view and at this scale. This is a huge complex that went up in flames.
Arrival, my first two an engine company and a ladder company arrived on the scene. The building was fully engulfed at that time.
Those buildings totaling 1 million square feet, according to Chief William Sisson of Pawtucket. Central Falls Fire Chief Robert Bradley telling the press he is thankful for the large response from communities near and far. He estimates at least 250 firefighters battled the inferno.
Again, I can't give enough credit to the firefighters who handled this. It's amazing that this was contained only to these abandoned mills. It's still obviously terrible because of their potential, but this could have been a whole lot worse. Thanks for watching. I had a lot of fun making this video, but I also visit many more abandoned places. Like this believed to be haunted convent sitting alone on the coast of Rhode Island. Or this now completely overgrown children's theme park that I actually attended when I was a kid. You can watch all of these on my YouTube channel or on my website. I also post behind the scenes photos on my Instagram account.